Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Stefan Burns. We have new images of 3i Atlas. This is our latest image taken today, the 16th of November, just about 12, 14, 16 hours ago out of New Mexico by Satoru Murata. And this is the best image that we have yet of this interstellar object. Now very clearly showing quite a few features that are quite common to comets. So 3i Atlas is still very bizarre as it relates to normal comets that come in from around our solar system from what we call the Oort cloud. It's this hypothesized cometary reservoir that surrounds the solar system way out, where things passing by, the galactic tide or a nearby brown dwarf swinging through, or maybe a planet X, disturbs this reservoir of icy, rocky bodies that then fling in to the solar system. Those are the comets that we know of. There also are comets that exist within the inner solar system. Chiron, for example, is an example of a comet that lives in the inner solar system. Its nucleus is about 220 kilometers across. It never gets that close to the sun, but it does have a coma. Sometimes that expands out and more. But this is quite anomalous in many ways. So we see one big tail here. We see multiple other tails and or jets, and you'll also see this sunward facing jet right there. So the thing about 3i Atlas is that is quite unusual. There have been other comets where that has been observed, but it's like probably you can count them on one hand. I'm not an expert on that, so I can't definitively say, but this is quite odd. Now, the thing is, we're starting to get a sense of what this thing is because we're having it appear back in view again for amateur astronomers on Earth. And also the data that we collected on Mars, specifically from the ESA, has helped refine its orbital trajectory such that we know that it's very precise now and it hasn't gone through any crazy deviations from what was expected. So it's maintained its trajectory with only an extremely minor amount of non-gravitational acceleration, which basically all comets do to some degree. And also now all of our recent amateur astronomer photographs are showing that it has this sort of plasma tail and jet features. So let's go back to the beginning. Here we have our first good image of 3i Atlas taken by Hubble in late July. I believe this is July 21st. And this was early on. So it wasn't that close to the sun at this point. It was getting closer though. Remember, this is the fastest ever object, comet, whatever observed. So of all the comets that we have observed, this interstellar object is the winner at over 58 kilometers per second when it first entered in, 68 kilometers per second. It's perihelion, its closest approach to the sun, which was October 29th. So this was the photo taken by Hubble. This is the sunward direction. So this is what was so odd and stimulated so much conversation, was that it has this large coma, but it's pushing more out towards the sun, which is bizarre. It's not the craziest thing we've ever seen, but it is bizarre. And it showed that sort of feature quite consistently going all the way up until we lost sight of it before its perihelion. There also was some imagery from a variety of others that showed a little bit of a tail. It's kind of like metamorphosing, like back and forth. This is always looking different depending on who took the long exposure photography, stacked the images, did the image editing and more. Here we have an image from the 9th, I believe this is the 9th of November. And here is after perihelion. So we can, I think this is the 8th of November. We finally clearly see that it has a tail and it has these multiple jets. We see one right there. We see that sunward facing jet right here. And this was the first indication, okay, we have something now looking more like a comet. Because all the way up till its perihelion, we had some photos, and there's a lot of confusion out there. Some amateur astronomers were not doing their due diligence and they're taking like weird telescope or effects and saying that was 3i Atlas. There's a lot of bad information out there. That's kind of the larger story here. In my mind, is like this has been a mere reflection for ourselves because everyone's run with a lot of these crazy ideas and they haven't been doing their due diligence, and a lot of people don't have integrity, and some people are very closed-minded only for this angle, only for that angle, instead of being open-minded and willing to look at all the possibilities. So it's kind of bizarre. But this was the 8th, I believe, 8th or 9th of November, and we see it starting to form these features. At this moment in time, it was still behind the sun in such a way that this tail isn't going exactly to the side. It's actually at this oblique angle. So at that point, what you're seeing here is foreshortened from our view. Now we go forward one more here. And we see the same image, this time detailing the 5 different jets that were found. Here's a sunward one, there's one going this way, and here are the other 3 like this. Here are the Chalmers who captured this, Jaeger and Raymond. And this is the solar direction, so going this way. So that's the sunward side over here. And Atlas at this time, 3i Atlas is zooming away from the sun like this. Well, here's our latest, or here's an image after that. And I can actually pull up when these were. Yeah, the first one was the 8th. This one is now the 9th of November. And I have all these linked in the video description. So if you want to go to the people that found this, it's all linked in the video description. So here we see this tail really popping out now. We again still have that sunward facing jet. This is from a totally different astronomer. 2 different looks at it. And because the day's gone by, it's a little bit easier to image that tail. They also may have used different techniques to kind of pull it out a bit more. But we see that 3i Atlas, after its closest approach to the sun, is clearly now like off-gassing a lot. And so what happens, that means that it has a very porous surface where these volatiles that are ice can directly sublimate to gas at hypersonic speeds, which will then carry a lot of dust grains with them, which then all get ejected out into this coma and into this tail. And then the moment it enters into the space environment, some of that gets ionized. So you immediately have ionization of a good portion of that, and now you have this dust, gas, and plasma environment. So this is gas, dust, and plasma for the tail, for the coma, for the jets, everything. It's probably more plasma than not. But this is the 9th of November here. And here we see the 10th of November from a different person once again. And we see, but all taken on Earth, okay? These are all taken on Earth by amateur astronomers. Once again, we see the sunward facing jet. We see the tail has kind of multiple jets to it, maybe even a little bit up here. And we can see how they took this image here. This image comes from the Sigma clipping combination of 14 120-second exposures remotely taken with the Arctic robotic unit, part of the virtual telescope project. And again, these are all linked in the video description. So we see that it's taking on a pretty clear shape and structure. I'm going to get back to these 2 here. And then this is our latest one for today, November 16th. Okay. Now, before we get to this one here, this is kind of the next topic afterwards, is the European Space Agency. They released their photos of 3i Atlas from Mars via the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter. And they released this very blurry GIF right here that you see. It was not good in terms of like actually revealing details about the nucleus or things of that nature. But it was great because what happened is we took a image of this object from a completely different vantage point in the solar system. And viewers of my channel, you all, hello and welcome. Love all ya. That have been watching for a while know that I've been talking about how we should have multiple Hubbles out there, multiple James Webbs. We shouldn't just have them just clustered around Earth. Ideally, we would have one orbiting around Mars, one around Venus, and one maybe even further out at like Lagrange points, maybe Jupiter's Lagrange points. So when things are flying through, we could look at it from different perspectives and angles and hopefully some would get closer than others. Like 3 Atlas for the 21st of October in its perihelion was effectively on the other side of the sun. So we didn't have any good chance to really look at it. We had some things like JUICE that are looking at now, that's also ESA. But what this allowed us to do is to really precisely define its orbit. And so they knew that by getting these observations that they would be able to improve the data, its orbital trajectory data, but they didn't know by how much. In fact, they were able to improve by an order of 10 times. So this sort of remote sensing from Mars back October 3rd, but that's really close, but also totally different part of the solar system, allowed us to really refine the orbit, well, not the orbit, the trajectory of 3I Atlas, which confirmed that it hasn't really done anything crazy. If aliens were to invade, remember they were supposed to do it on the 21st when they were directly behind the sun. Yet now our amateur astronomers from around the world who are out there early morning capturing these images of 3I Atlas, doing the work to analyze it and share that, they are finding exactly where our ephemeris data is plotting it. So that is important to recognize because that shows that it's not done a crazy deviation. And a lot of people are running stories about how it's done this huge non-gravitational acceleration and it's completely diverting course. And it's one of the things that people can do is they can use a whole bunch of complex language and math formulas to confuse you and to make you think something crazy is happening, when in reality it's like math can be used to explain anything, right? There's been a whole bunch of math equations which turned out to be totally bogus because, well, a new theory came along that explains something better. So math does not equal truth. Math can get close to truth, but it does not equal truth. So just be mindful of people that like throw all this stuff at you to try to convince you of something. And a lot of it's just like back of the napkin calculations. And maybe their back of the napkin calculations are better than yours or mine, whoever, doesn't mean they're right. So what we're seeing is the actual good calculations based off of high quality data are showing everything is effectively I wouldn't say 3I Atlas is normal, but it's not doing anything that we should be worried about. That's what I would say to that. And we see our trajectory for 3I Atlas right here. One of the stories right now is that, in fact, this sunspot group that was facing 3I Atlas about a month ago is now facing 3I Atlas once more. So here we have our Sun-Earth alignment. And I set this up so it's effectively like a square angle like this. So we see that 3I Atlas is maybe 105 degrees from Earth like that. It's not 100 degrees. That says probably 105, but it's definitely not 115 or something. Well, check out the sun right now. Here we can look at the sun. Here's our 131 angstrom view of the sun, and here is the big sunspot group that I've been talking about for the past week because we've had all that solar activity. That G5 minus geomagnetic storm has wrapped up. All the impacts are done. We do have a new sunspot group pushing out right here. And as some of you know, I've been discussing how we may have something happen geomagnetically, solar activity, something like that, the 19th to the 21st of November. And I was kind of wondering, well, we're going to have to get a new sunspot group to form because this one's going to be rotated off. Here now, exactly today in the past 12 hours, we've had this sunspot group here, 4284, rapidly develop, push out a bunch of flux, and it's now spitting out C-class solar flares. So if this explodes and launches a coronal mass ejection in the next 24 to 36 hours, that would hit us likely right around that planetary alignment of the 19th to the 21st, which is the Sun, Mercury, Moon, Earth, and Uranus in a perfect line, in harmonic aspect also to Saturn, Neptune, which are nearly conjunct, a once in 37-year event, and also Pluto, another 60 degrees off of that. So looks like this planetary geometry is starting to do something, but it's too early to say because we haven't had anything significant launch our way yet. But here is the big sunspot group that has been very active. Look, it's now off the western limb. It's now starting to get close to that angle, that 105-degree angle, let's say, 105, 110 degrees. So it's going to be really interesting to see in the next 48 hours, 48, 72 hours, whether we get some big explosions once again from that sunspot group. Because we had a 4.0 X-class flare from it when it was on the limb over here. That hit us today, but it was very minor. We just had the very edge of the shock wave hit us. It hit Stereo A though, which is one of our probes 30 degrees ahead in our orbit, and it gave Stereo A a huge hit. It would have been a big storm if that hit us directly. So this thing is still pumping out tons of coronal mass ejections and energy overall. It was undergoing some new sunspot differentiation right before it rotated off, and now it's directly in line with 3I Atlas, because again, you can see right here, here's the Earth, there's the sun. That would be that 90-degree angle right there, and maybe you add about 15 degrees to that, boom, there is 3I Atlas. And it's also converging forward. You see 3I Atlas moving towards that 90-degree lineup, right, as the sun is rotating. So we have the closest approach of 3I Atlas rapidly approaching. That is December 19th. And now what we're seeing with 3I Atlas and all this plasma being emitted is that it's spewing interstellar material out into the interplanetary space, the medium. So we have a whole bunch of just stuff from not even our solar system now being emitted in bulk from 3I Atlas, having been heated up, and now it's undergoing this metamorphosis, you could say. This is looking like the final form of 3I Atlas. I mean, eventually it's going to shoot out and it's going to cool back down again, just go back to being a lifeless rock or something, right? But right now it's gone in, it's heated up, and now it's fully, the plasma system is fully online, which means that if there is, a level of consciousness and intelligence to this thing, which is, 100% what I believe, because energy is information and consciousness is fundamental to reality. So therefore, there is some sort of unique, information and consciousness and intelligence to this. Now it's fully powered up. So how does that start to change the morphic resonance field, like the consciousness field of our solar system, which of course the sun is within, the Earth is within all the other planets and asteroids and comets and more? I don't know. Who's to say? I find it funny that people think that they have consciousness, but everything else doesn't have consciousness. Like only humans and only within the brain is consciousness, but everything else outside of just here is totally devoid of consciousness. Yet, what actually gave you your body? Like, you didn't have a body until Earth gave you all the materials for it, right? Your mother ate food, and then like the cells divided and the fetus grew. So you're given your body and everything by the Earth, and then when you go away and you die, it returns to the Earth. So if consciousness is non-local, it's just inhabiting your body, your brain for a little bit, well, who's to say there isn't consciousness everywhere, right? You're given it all from the Earth. So the Earth probably has a whole bunch more than you. Think about that. So this also has a bunch of mass and material and plasma and all this stuff to it. So it's now kind of at like that final stage of awakening, and it has its closest approach to Earth on the 19th. So that's kind of an interesting thought, because when we go back here, it has its closest approach to Mars back on October 3rd. So we go back all the way to October 3rd, and 3I Atlas wasn't showing a plasma tail or anything like that back on October 3rd. It was getting close and heating up, but it wasn't fully online from this perspective, right? And then it did close approach to Venus shortly after that, right here, right near its perihelion. This is when it got hit by a bunch of coronal mass ejections from that sunspot group. Then it had its closest approach to the sun. The rough back of the napkin calculations for that is that in deep interstellar space, it was receiving 10 to the negative 7, 10 to the negative 8 watts per square meter in terms of just energy or radiance. at its closest approach to the sun, is receiving 735 watts per square meter. So that's like 10 or 11 orders of magnitude. Huge jump in terms of the amount of energy it's receiving across its surface. It's awake, plasmified, and more. And then, because Earth was on the other side during all this, now it's getting close to Earth after it has awakened, turned on, and it's fully going. Then the final, here's the interesting thing, the final transit is with Jupiter. We go forward, we just hit play. It crosses near Jupiter in March. I think it's March 17th is its closest date specifically. We see it right there. And it's interesting because it flew in from the constellation of Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So the historic signification is that Jupiter rules over that constellation or that sign. And here we see it getting close to Jupiter, and Jupiter is representative of faith and wisdom and basically benevolence and also kind of, it's like one step away from God, basically. So we have 3i Atlas now awake, activated, fully online. Now it's getting close to Earth. On the 19th, it's the closest. It's spewing all of its material out into space, and then it does this final flyby in Jupiter. Maybe that's when we finally get the full download aha moment recognition of what this thing actually has done for us. But it's clearly revealed a lot, because here, let's talk about kind of some of the problems that I've been seeing just as a person. Here we have a photo of 3i Atlas taken by a YouTuber. I think it's like Chuck's Astrophotography. It's linked in the video description. This was the photo that he got, okay? It's like a 5-hour live stream, okay? So here's the thing. People don't have forever to watch these videos. So it's like some 5-hour live stream. Well, that's the photo you got. Here's the photo that was then presented. And this is the one that made the rounds online. And look, I mean, this thing looks awesome. Like, holy cow, what the heck is this, right? You see this and you're start to thinking that is an alien spaceship, folks. Well, you know, there was really no disclaimer as to what this was. A lot of people ran the story of, oh, this is 3i Atlas. This is someone who took that original photo right here and did an artistic rendition on it. So that's the original one. And then over here, and again, shout out to Drew Doss, as he sat through that video and found the point where the guy mentioned, oh, and this is artistic rendition by one of my followers or something. But most people don't have the time to do that. So they see this, and if they just read the headline, it's from like a source that they kind of like or trust, whatever, and that person didn't do their due diligence because they're lazy or whatever, then all of a sudden this becomes a thing. So we saw this a lot. We saw that dynamic play out a ton. And it's been active since kind of the beginning, honestly, with 3i Atlas. Now, here's another thing that occurred. We have a different comet in the solar system called K1 Atlas. And what happened with K1 Atlas was that it underwent this differentiation and it basically fragmented apart starting a few days ago. A lot of people didn't even read the name, you know, they saw C2025 Atlas, not realizing that Atlas is the observatory network. So there's a whole bunch of comets with the name Atlas in it. And they said, oh, 3i Atlas is now fragmenting apart. But in fact, it was K1 Atlas that's fragmenting apart, which is located near 3i Atlas. It's ahead. K1 Atlas is in Leo. Maybe it's moved out of Leo now, but it's basically been in Leo. 3i Atlas has been the constellation of Virgo. So they are close together. This one's had an unusual golden appearance to it, which I find interesting because it's been in the sign of Leo, you know, the sign of the lion, or the constellation of the lion. But it's been fragmenting, but people didn't even read the thing, and all of a sudden they're writing a story. 3i Atlas is splitting into multiple spaceships or headed to Earth. So you see how this happens. And it's really just a reflection on us. It's just a societal reflection on everyone, of course, but like collectively, you just kind of go like this. So that has happened. We do have new information on K1 Atlas here from this astronomer's telegram. I can show you that. And they show how it's changed across time. So here we have K1 Atlas on the 13th. there's the 14th, 15th, and 16th. So again, I'll go through that. You can see, watch this zone right there. You'll see how it's splitting apart, moving. So it's been fragmenting. But people ran this as a 3I Atlas story. This is a totally different thing. This is a comet from our solar system. What we hypothesize is the Oort cometary reservoir, the Oort cloud. And then 3I Atlas, if we look at the light observations, it's been very, very bright. So we got all these observations here now from amateur astronomers, and we'll see how it starts to diminish as it gets further away from the sun, but it is quite bright at this moment in time. Now, one of the people out there who's been really beating the drum on 3I Atlas, everyone knows him, Avi Loeb. I've never met the guy. I don't really have much to say about him. But it's just, I've commented before on some of his Medium articles, and then he'll go, on one of them in particular, he said, here we have an image of it, and it was actually an image of Phobos, like Mars's moon. And then I went back to the article a few days later, and that part was edited out, and he changed the title and everything. And so, you can say things and edit them later, unlike a video where it's like, I'm live right now, folks. This is just what it is. It's just kind of, I don't know, let's just read this. It's like, he's talking about, how these tails and jets from the dust grains and the size and everything, it's like this back of the napkin calculations. But then also it's like, finally, there's a more speculative possibility that the anti-tail is a result of technological thrusters which accelerate 3I Atlas away from the sun through tightly collimated jets that penetrate 1 million kilometers through the solar wind because of their high speed. It's just like continuing to run with this story when we clearly see now that it's not that, I think is, I just, when you don't know what it is, I think you should explore all the possibilities. As the data comes in, you start to get a sense of what things are. You should probably, wrap up the other stories and come out and officially say, hey, it looks like this is what it is. Does not mean that we shouldn't be looking at things very closely because of that perspective of an alien invasion or something, but it's not that. At this moment in time, it's not that. Unless it does something super crazy in the next couple weeks, and it's almost certainly not going to. It would have done it probably already, the Oberth maneuver around the perihelion. So I don't know, it's just odd. And then I have to actually go back down. I would just recommend people, if you go back to some of these earlier articles, you get a better sense of someone often, right before the fame and everything. You get a sense of some of these random articles here tell you a lot. And you could read this article here, Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the Jews. And this is a eye-opener. It's so weird about how the Jews are the chosen people for the galaxy, and they're the ones meant to inhabit the universe, and how Jewish faith can live on for 1 trillion years around a red dwarf. So there's some weird stuff here, man. So just, be careful about who you listen to. Hey, if what I'm saying doesn't resonate, then just bugger on off. That's fine. But there's some weird stuff here. So just be mindful. That's what I'm saying. Because people say one thing, but then they actually have some weird Jews take over the galaxy motive or something. I mean, it's bizarre. That's all I can say there, really. It's just simply bizarre. So that is the update on 3I Atlas, and that's the best image that we have of it as of right now. I think NASA's going to release their high-rise imagery tomorrow. That's my hunch. That's my guess. I think they're going to release it tomorrow. They said they're going to release it soon, and tomorrow it's a normal day. Right now it's Sunday, so they're not going to do anything on the weekend. The government's back open again in the United States, at least for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever. So I think this week we'll get it, maybe even Monday. I'll release an update on that when that happens. I also don't expect the high-rise imagery to be all that exciting. We'll see. We'll see how it looks, but I just don't expect it to be all that exciting. Now let's go look through some of the questions that have come in. It looks like we have Drew Doss here in the chat. Drew Doss, the boss. Thanks for the super thanks. I'm pretty peanut butter and jelly that you have your own theme song. He's doing great work, so give him a follow on X. I'll link him in the video description if you want to stay up to date on 3i Atlas. And you know, the biggest thing here is just looking at the imagery that we're getting and being mindful that most amateur astronomers, I think, are basically just getting these photos, stacking the images, and then publishing them, and that's it. Some of them are not, it's like they want to get some clicks or something. So they'll edit the image to maybe look like that, right? That's also a factor too. But in general, if you look at the amateur astronomer photos and you see which ones are the most similar, right? You see this one is fairly similar to this one, which is similar to these, which is similar to this, right? Then you get a sense of, okay, what the heck this thing actually is. That's what it is. So Drew's been doing a great job of compiling all those on his Twitter channel. So thanks, man. And how many genders do aliens have? Probably infinite genders. Maybe they're hermaphrodites. They do everything. Maybe they have no gender. I don't know. I don't think it really matters at that point. Thank you, Diamond, for the super chat. And the daily grind. What type of telescope do you need to see it? Since you said amateur astronomers saw it, asking for my kids. There have been people picking it up with their C-Star S50, which is actually one that I have. So I should probably go try to see it myself once the clouds clear up. But that's about a $500 telescope that you can pick up. It's like a smart telescope. And so people have been getting photos of 3i Atlas now with their S50 because the apparent magnitude of 3i Atlas right now is in that 10 range, which is bright enough to be picked up by a C-Star. So that's what I would get if you just only want to drop like $500 because it can get expensive and also very, there can be a lot of expertise needed. And I'm really excited to dive into that myself eventually. Just like that's something I really want to get into, build like a really awesome observatory. But for right now, I'm a newbie to the actual act of taking a telescope and getting good shots and everything. So I figured I would start with a C-Star. I'm not affiliated with them or anything, but I've just read a lot of reviews online that they're good. It's like $500. It has like an auto tracking feature and stuff. So that's probably where I would start if I were you. Thank you, Dale, for the super sticker. James, thank you for super thanks. Based on 3i Atlas's known and projected path, can we predict when the Earth may pass through the dust debris field, resulting in a meteor shower? That's a good question. It depends on how much it expands out because, again, it never cuts within the orbit of Earth. So if it cut within the orbit of Earth, at some point, we would be kind of passing through that. But if we go here and just kind of hit play, it's probably going to be beginning early next year and then spring when we get closest to this. If there's been any stuff left here through that perihelion journey, maybe it expands out, maybe that's when we get hit. Now, does that mean we're going to get meteor showers from that? I don't know. That might be too much. But certainly it's been spewing out a ton of material since this perihelion, which we can go back here to that exact date of the 29th of October. That's the perihelion. So it started forming these tails and jets and everything after perihelion. So anywhere in this zone is where it really is going to have pumped a lot of material out, though that's also traveling right along with it. Some of it's being ejected at its own velocity away, but there's also the initial starting trajectory and velocity of it. So a lot of it's going to continue to go like this. Some of it, though, will probably expand out, but you'd be surprised. In space, things don't behave the same way as they do like here on Earth. Like here on Earth, you have a spray canister or something, everything expands out. And in space, what they find is a lot of asteroid jet streams actually become more similar over time, their orbits, because the collisions are inelastic. So rather than them going like this and then bouncing apart, they hit like this, and then their orbital velocities relative to each other actually reduce, and therefore now they're floating around each other more, so the orbits become more similar across time. So there's not necessarily an expansion quality to this, but we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. That's really the only answer I can give you there. And that's just how it is. Westwind, thank you for the super sticker, and same to you, Omar. And then, can we predict the crazy of normie actions? No. No. I mean, there's some evidence that, you know, our psychology, behavior, and societal rhythms and trends follow solar activity and also planetary resonances. So a little bit, but no, I think there's also forces and factors beyond that too. Thank you, Panther, for the super sticker. And Uper, thank you so much for the very generous super sticker. That's awesome. Thank you so much. And also for the 50 memberships, everybody. That's great. Shannon Davis, thank you for the super sticker. Voodoo, Boom, Shock, Alaka, you rock, don't stop. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Kathleen has a question. Does the current solar activity or a strange comet friend have anything to do with the lousy internet connection and streaming issues the past 2 days? Well, we had the big G5 minus storm recently, and the solar wind has remained kind of elevated. It's now finally dying down. It's possible, but it's hard to say specifically. We didn't really have too many. There were some power outages that occurred like the day or two after that big storm in certain states. Like subscribers commented saying, hey, I had a power outage here, whatever. But it wasn't anything like super widespread. And we know that there can be technological disruptions to, let's say, like Starlink or to different telecommunication groups. So it's possible. But lousy internet, if it's just lousy, I wouldn't probably think of that first. If it's like, oh, we lost our internet for 12 hours, then maybe. If it's just lousy, it's hard to say. And thank you again, Uper, for being a member for 2 months. Lisa Stevens, thank you. And a very big super thanks also from Realistic Heart. Realistic Heart, thank you so much for that as well. And so if you have a question, you can ask it in the chat here. I'll go through some questions from the normal chat as well. Whatever you have on 3i Atlas, let's keep it on topic to space and more, and then I'm going to sign off. The first one I see right here is, where is Swan 2025? That is another comet that was in our solar system. It still is, rather. But yeah, R2 Swan's aligned with the ecliptic plane. Let's go to where it is now. Today's the 16th of November. And we see that it is zooming out. Here is the Earth, the Sun. Swan is zooming out away from the Sun at this point. And we actually don't really get that good of a view of its tail because of the angle here. So there have been people still taking photos of Swan, but because we're fairly close to that Sun R2 Swan alignment, we're not really getting good views of its tail. But it is showing a bright green coma. So you could go type in this name right there on Google or on X, and you'll get quite a few images of this comet across time. Here's a question from Roxy. Could 3i Atlas have been the reason why K1 Atlas broke up? When can we expect the magnetic field to die down a little? Because I can tell you now it hurts. The magnetic field, the solar wind right now is totally calm and normal. It's pretty much fine. Could 3i Atlas have been the reason why K1 broke up? Let's add in K1 to our list here. C 2025 K1 Atlas. And you see that they're not that close together. So I would say no, that's probably not the reason. Comets often break up because they're made up of low porosity or high porosity, low density material, and just, you know, the close approach to the sun can often cause them to break up because of all that solar pressure. So there's K1 Atlas. If we play forward here, we see it do its perihelion, and then it zooms out like this. That's where it is right now. And so it makes sense that it just simply didn't serve, you know, that was too much for it. So now it's starting to fragment apart. You usually get fragmentation of something if there's a high angular velocity on something and it passes close to it. So let's say a comet passes close to Jupiter. Jupiter has a lot of torque to it. So it could literally just rip something apart, even if it doesn't like actually hit Jupiter. The sun doesn't really do that so much because it's rotating very slowly, right? Jupiter rotates like once every 8 hours or so. The sun's like once every 30 days, roughly. So the sun breaks things up more so just through intense heat, energy, radiation and more. And then this comet here, just made up of what it is made up of, just simply couldn't handle the heat. Now it's breaking up. But yeah, that was one of those stories that people were running with. K1 Atlas is actually 3I Atlas, and 3I Atlas is now turning into multiple ships and stuff. And it's just like people are just so lazy they can't check it, or one person, if enough people run with the same story, then everyone thinks it's true, but it's still not true just because 10,000 people repost it. If it's not true, it's not true. That's something that I think we hopefully have all learned since 2020. So yeah, I mean, just because like 10 million, 90% of the population thinks something doesn't mean they're right. Now the modern science is coming around to realize all the problems that resulted of 2020, 2021, spikeopathies and more. You can research into that if you want. The dumbing down of the public has been well orchestrated. Yeah, precisely. People aren't taught like critical thinking skills, how to analyze someone and really kind of think about why they're posting or sharing what they are, the motives behind it, and like what they're not revealing, right? So yeah, all this, because I'm in a public facing role. So then you can apply all that to me, which is great, you should. I'll just share that, I mean, I originally was working as a geophysicist in 2020, 2021. I felt a call to start researching more because I just could tell I was like, I didn't have the information I wanted. I just wasn't knowledgeable enough on certain subjects. And I also wanted to explore a whole bunch of different things. And there just wasn't enough time in the day for me with my normal job. So I quit my job. And then I just started devouring research papers, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 a day, something like that. I mean, I was just reading research papers like crazy, books, all this stuff. And I figured my way of cementing that information in the brain was to create videos and then present those and to give that information out to others. Because if what I found was interesting, probably others would find it interesting as well. So that's always been my motivation. And now, I mean, certainly YouTube is paying the bills, which is great. Everyone deserves a roof over their head and food in their belly. And we do our best to provide that for everyone that we meet, right? But it's also still just, I think there's a lot more out there that I want to learn. Certainly is. That's why I want to have my own observatory at some point, and geophysical observatory and more, working towards making that possible. And so that's always been my motivation. It's really that simple. I don't have any weird religious motivation. I want to see people happy, healthy, well educated, spiritually enlightened as best as possible. So I think that is what would make for a good society. I want to see people healthy, right? Taking care of themselves, exercising, eating well, breathing good air, drinking good water. Just like, can we make the world a better place? These are all my motivations. But not everyone has those goals. Right? Not everyone has, a lot of people, they're like, let's clear cut the forest. Let's pollute the oceans. Let's strip mine the countryside. Let's enslave the populace. So, yeah. So yeah, we gotta call people, you gotta responsibly call things as they are. When we see something, say something. That's kind of the deal. That's what I think. Here's a good question. The last one that we'll take. Could it disrupt the asteroid belt on the way out and cause asteroids from the belt to come to Earth? Now, if it was a really big object, that could possibly happen. But 3I Atlas, we don't know the upper size. That's why we're waiting on that high-rise imagery. It could be very large. It could be up to 50 kilometers. It's looking increasingly likely it's not that big. But it would need to be very large, and it would need to get very close to something that's small for it to maybe perturb it. So we go forward in time here. It's going to be in the main asteroid belt from December through March, basically. So that's the time for it to maybe disturb something. But for it to disturb it, it would have to, these asteroids are traveling along their own orbit. So it would have to somehow suddenly really cause it to go in like this. I mean, it's all technically possible. I can't say it's not, and I can't do any back of the napkin calculations to say yes or no to that. But it's not likely to do anything significant because the asteroid belt, while it has a lot of objects in it, 80% of the mass is actually concentrated in just a few objects like Ceres, Pallas, Athena, more. And it's probably just going to pass right through empty space and actually never get close to anything in the first place because most of this is all empty space. Millions of objects, mostly empty space though. So yeah, that is my update for you on 3i Atlas. Wanted to fill you in on what was happening there with our latest imagery. The NASA high-rise imagery is expected to come out soon, maybe tomorrow, probably this week. So I'll keep you up to date on that. Also, I'll keep you updated on what's happening here on Earth with solar activity, earthquakes, volcanoes, and more. We've had a big volcanic explosion in Japan with, I think it's Sakamura volcano or one of those Sakurajima, something like that. It's very, very active. Grounded actually like 30 flights, caused 30 flights to be delayed or something. So Japan's still very hot. Watching that closely, but in general, earthquake activity has been low. Solar activity since the big G5 storm has been low, though we do have that new Sunspot group. So I'll keep my eyes on everything and keep you up to date along the way. So smash that like button if you appreciate this video, and make sure you subscribe to see more content like this covering what's happening in the solar system and beyond. So thanks so much. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you.